Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm acrylic artist Joni Young, and today I'm going to be showing you step by step exactly how to paint this pretty landscape I'd call Morning Glory. We're working on an 11 by 14 double primed stretched canvas. I'll list all of the colors and the brushes below in the description box, as well as links to my other tutorials and my Patreon page. I'm going to begin with my large flat brush and Cadmium Yellow Warm. I'm going to pull around an area, leaving it just plain inside for the sun. So right in the middle here, back and forth with my brush, and create sort of a round circle right there. Now to help blend this paint and pull it across, I'm going to use quite a bit of water. And I'm going to take my filbert brush and scumble off some of the excess yellow paint here until I get a nice soft round circle. I want it to be bright white in the middle, so I'll continue to wipe the excess paint off on a towel close by, and then I'll pull in some titanium white right in the middle. So apply it very lightly. And then I'm also going to pull a little streak of it right through here. This combined with the yellow will create a really soft buttery tone. And on the other side as well. Okay, with the same brush, take neon orange and titanium white and pull back and forth underneath that sun. Grab a bit of water to help loosen all that paint up, and then we'll go partially on the yellow and above. So we just want to leave that area yellow and the sun bright white, and then come in around all of that with this pretty peachy color. Then you can also combine the white with the yellow and the orange, and we'll pull that back and forth, nice long even strokes. Okay, now for the top, I'm going to take a scoop of white and a scoop of neon orange, and I'm going to spread it across the top of the canvas till it meets the yellow and the orange. And we're going to add color to the bottom as well and leave just a little area, a quarter of the way from the bottom, just plain for our light blue, ultramarine blue, and titanium white. So these are complementary colors, and this is going to be our nice, cool shadow color in our painting today. Then I'm going to spread some across the very top of the canvas too. And I am going to pick up a little bit of water. And then pull back and forth. You can take that blue and white and go partially over the orange and the yellow. I take a little bit more, just the blue this time. Make this a little bit darker gradually. Now Let's start to add a few little streaks for some clouds right about here. I'm going to pick up some of my cadmium red and pull that across, right across the horizon. So nice long strokes back and forth. Now some neon orange, and we'll overlap that slightly, pulling and blending gently. Without washing my brush, I'm going to pick up some of that light ultramarine blue and go just right above that red. This will make a smoky, purpley kind of a color that's really pretty. And we'll add a few little bits of shadows here in the foreground. Pick up some more orange and pull that in as well. And now a little bit of black. This will give us a really nice contrast. And then pulling in some neon orange right away, right into that black. So all we're trying to do here is just build up the shadow really softly and gradually. We want this landscape to feel peaceful, so we don't want to have too much of a contrast. We want to have a nice balance of light and shadow and mid-tones. So we've got our soft pastel colors, and then we've got the heat of that cadmium red and the neon orange, and there's a lot going on, but it's important to know how to bring it all together. So that's what I'm trying to show you guys today by doing this a little bit slower. This is a little bit of a longer tutorial. I do tend to paint quite quickly, so my tutorials aren't always really long. I've got my mop brush now. I'm taking light ultramarine blue, cadmium red, a little bit of titanium white, and I'm making my own shade of purple. I'm going to tap in right on that horizon line, some bushes that are way off in the distance. I just love that smoky purple color that cad red and blue make together, and a little bit of that white. And I'll softly blend and pull back and forth with my brush in the foreground to mix a bit of that color in there. I'm going to take a bit more of the red now and just add that a little bit here and there to these bushes. And then with a filbert brush, I'm just going to soften slightly around the edges and give them a little bit of a red glow, a little bit of a haze around it, or each one I mean. And then maybe I'll just add a couple more right here. Pick up some more of the blue, tap that in. You can add as much of that blue as you like. You can leave out the red and just do the blue if you want. That would look really pretty as well. I'm just having fun with red today. Some days I feel like using more blue, and then other days it's all about turquoise. But lately, especially today, I'm really having fun with my cadmium red and my neon red. And I will be incorporating a little bit of my neon red later on towards the end of this painting, so stay tuned for that. Don't skip ahead, guys, or you're going to be missing out on so many little tips and tricks. Taking my black, and I've just got a loose, fluid, flowy black paint I'm using today, just out of those little craft bottles you get at the craft store. And I'm going to begin this big tree. And I picture it being one of those big trees that has moss hanging on them down in the south. Originally, I was thinking of an African safari type of a sunset, but then my imagination kind of took over and this painting started taking on a life of its own, which if you watch my videos all the time, you know this tends to happen with me. So maybe you guys can relate. Leave a comment below and let me know if you guys are the same way when you're creating a piece. So I'm going to do one little branch at a time and just continue to add on to this tree, making it stretch almost all the way over to the left side. This is really going to be the focal point of this painting with that beautiful bright sun behind it. Then we'll add some really soft, pretty sun rays casting down on our cool blue field with a nice little fence. So I am using my filbert for this. These are going to be my thicker branches. If you want for skinnier branches, you can switch over to a smaller brush, like a little liner brush, whatever you guys feel comfortable with. I'm not too concerned with the way the ends of my branches look because I know that I'm going to be tapping in some leaves on top of them and they'll be hidden anyways, so don't worry too much about how every single branch looks, guys. So you can see some of these branches are darker and some of them are a little bit more faded looking. They don't all have to be really dark black. Okay, I'm going to switch over to a mini fan brush now. I'm going to load it up with my Cad Red and I'm going to start tapping on top of those branches, along the side. Now we'll begin with the red and then we'll start bringing in a little bit of the black. I want to have the red underneath parts of it to give it a nice kind of a glow to those leaves and just warm that black up a little bit so it's not so black and dark and kind of almost boring. If something's just completely black, especially a large area like this, it can just be too kind of flat looking, so it's nice to tint your blacks with another color or two, and that's what I'm going to be doing today, is using the red, some orange, my light purple or my light ultramarine blue, and a little bit of my neon red later as well. So I'm just going to keep loading my brush up and tapping, making this tree bigger and a little fuller, and then having some skinnier areas that kind of fan out. You can use a mop brush for this. You can also use a filbert brush or a stippling brush. I just really want to use the fan brush for this type of tree because it's giving it that kind of flat and stretched out look, sort of like trees that you would see in an African safari, but also kind of down south, and all these little weeping bits of moss hanging off the tree. It just gives it that kind of a dramatic look, and if you use a mop brush instead of a fan brush for this, you're going to get a much different look. Your leaves and everything will be, all the foliage on your tree will look a lot rounder. So it's something to consider. The filbert brush definitely would work. So you have a few different choices of what brushes you can use for this. Now turning my brush sideways, I can just pull and flick and you get instant hanging moss. And you can also use this brush to create a weeping willow tree. I don't think I've painted a weeping willow tree on my channel yet. I'll have to do that in the future for you guys. I'm just taking a bit of my neon orange now, kind of adding it to the side here to make it look like the light is from that sun is really hitting those branches. creates that nice soft glow that we want. So I'll add a few more bits of moss. And a few more bits of leaves up here and branches that kind of stretch out. And maybe right about here, we'll add another one. Just tap, tap, tap. Take a bit of red, tap that a little bit on top, a little bit more black, lightly pull and flick straight down. Now when I'm pulling and flicking for that hanging moss, I'm not pushing hard at all. You want to barely touch that canvas, and I know I say that in every single lesson and video, but it really is the best tip for you guys is to know how much pressure to use when applying the paint and your brush strokes. So I'm going to start with a clean brush, pulling in some cool shadows now with my latest favorite blue. It was phthalo blue for a while. Now this is my go-to blue lately. This color is such a feel-good color, especially combined with these soft peaches and butter yellows. And it's all about creating a painting that makes you feel good, tranquil, something that kind of makes you feel like you can get away from whatever worries or problems you have going on in your life. It's just something that helps take you away, like a good movie or a good book. Art is therapy. So I'm just doing little flicks, little crisscrosses. No water on my brush, just straight paint for this. Now you can soften that blue one shade lighter with a little bit of that titanium white if you want as well. I would stay away from the yellow though, just because we don't want to turn it green. We want it to stay that pretty blue. Now this is when I'm going to start adding little bits of it to the tree. And it really starts to make this painting come together, tying in all these colors. So we've got our warm tones in the tree, and now we're adding our cool tones. And of course this blue with red makes purple, so we've got red, black, and bits of purple here and there. So I'll add it all over the tree, layering over parts of the black and a little bit over part of the red. Now as the paint underneath begins to dry, I can come back to it later on and add a little bit more of that blue and have it stand out some more. Now down here I'm just pulling and flicking maybe little bits of grass and silhouette, and then I'm going to begin my fence. Now you can use any liner brush that you feel comfortable with. I prefer a longer one. So I'm going to use black, maybe a little bit of water. If you have a thicker, heavy-bodied acrylic paint you're using, you might want to loosen it up with some water. Our fence posts are going to be longer in the foreground, right on the bottom right corner. As they get further away past the tree, they're going to be closer together and shorter. This will give us that perspective and make it look smaller, like it's further away. We want to make it look like it's sloping up on a little bank or a little hill, and then it's maybe going over, so you feel like you could walk into this painting and walk past that tree and wonder where this path might take you. And then we'll pull a line right through to connect all those fence posts. And then I'm going to do a highlight on each one of the fence posts with the light ultramarine blue. You'll need a clean brush for this, a little bit of white, and maybe a bit of water. So you'll pick one side, and I'm picking the right side. And we'll just do one highlight at a time. And then we'll add it to the board, running through the fence post as well. We don't want to forget about that. Now with my filbert brush, I'm going to pull and flick on a little bit of an angle at the base of each fence post, pull out to create a shadow casting down. And that's all there is to it, guys. It's just that easy. You don't want it to be dark black. You don't want it to be solid. You want it to be a little bit transparent. And if you find that you've put on too much paint for your shadow, the shadow should be lighter and softer than what's above. So you can just pull off some of the paint easily, add a bit of water if you need to scumble it off. Now here I am with a clean brush, titanium white, and my light ultramarine blue. I'm gonna add some highlights in between these shadows. Okay, so I'm going to keep adding these highlights, little dabs and taps. And then I'm going to push and get that paint right on the end of my brush and start tapping in some leaves or maybe a few little bits of ferns. Who knows? We just want to add whatever we want. It's our painting. We can make it whatever we want. It doesn't have to make sense. Now I titled this painting Morning Glory because my favorite shade of the Morning Glory flower is this blue. And it's also a beautiful shade of blue that kind of falls on everything when there's a light mist early in the morning and things can maybe look a little bit foggy and you'll get this really pretty hazy blue kind of a color. So that's how I decided to name this painting that. It came to me right away. Sometimes I cannot come up with a name for the life of me for a painting. And I'll ask you viewers to help me out. And many of you guys do on my Facebook page as well as Instagram. And then there's times like this when I just know right away it hits me really quickly as soon as or sometimes even when I'm working on a painting, the title will come to me. So I'm just going to continue to add this light ultramarine blue along the side, the left side, right under that neon orange glow, and I'm going to apply it to some of the branches and a little bit of the tree trunk on either side. Because there's a lot of black there and the black is so intense, like I said before, I really want to balance that out with midtones and soft shadows and highlights. I'm just going to pull and flick a little bit more of this blue, bring in some of that hanging moss in the front of the tree, a little bit on the sides, a little bit everywhere so it's kind of even. So see, now that this layer of paint has dried underneath, and you know acrylic paint dries really quickly, that's also why I really love to paint in acrylic, because it works for me because I am a fast painter, and if I do want to skip to something else in a painting, I can let that dry for a few minutes and come back to it and then apply my next coat right away. There are mediums out there that you can apply and mix with your acrylic to make it act like oils and slow down the drying process. That's probably one of the questions I get asked the most. That one and what brand of neon paints I use. So I'll tell you guys again, I use Holbein for my neons. They're my favorite. I've tried over the years almost every neon paint you can find out there, and nothing has been as satisfying to use and held up as well as the Holbein. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not an affiliate. I just, when I find a good product, I like to share it with you guys. So I'll have that in my list below with all my colors, that it's the Holbein. You can find it online and at some fine art stores. So I'm just going to continue to add that blue in areas, and then I will be adding some soft sun rays. You know, I love to add sun rays wherever I can. They really help to create a soft, tranquil mood to a painting, and I love light and shadow. And then I'm going to add a little bit of red, soften up the black a bit more, and just intensify this color up. I'll be adding a little bit of my neon red towards the end, although it looks more like pink, and that is what I was going for. It's one of my other brands of neons because I couldn't find my Holbein neon red at the time, so this was another brand and I thought I may as well just try it. I don't really like it as much as my Holbein. It's more pink, it's more neon pink than it is neon red, but it really worked for this landscape, and you'll see how pretty it looks towards the end. I'm going to add little bits of it here and there throughout the painting, the foreground, as well as the sky. Now I should mention that you guys have also asked me if I sell my paintings. Yes, I do. Almost all of my paintings that you see on my channel and Facebook are for sale, as well as Instagram. This one is for sale, so if anybody is interested, you can just send me a message on Facebook or Instagram or on my Patreon, and I will give you all the details for that. I'm going to add a little bit of white and yellow right here just because I went over a little bit too far with that orange and it wasn't looking quite right. So I'm just going to just softly lighten that up. Go back for some more of that pretty neon orange with a white, and just add little accents of it here and there around the tree, wherever I want a little pop of color and a bit more of a glow. So just adding little bits here and there can do so much in a painting. So if you guys want to know more about me, because most of the time in my tutorials it's just step by step talking about my painting and this process from start to finish of whatever I'm painting that day. But if you want to know more about me and have questions, I have a Q&A over on Patreon, so if you would like to join, there's a lot on my Patreon page. I've got other tutorials that are specifically just for my patrons. I've got that Q&A video where I talk a lot about how I decided to be an artist, what made me want to become an artist. I ask you, viewers, what you want to know about me, and I answer just about everything, so it's really worth your while to join. I'm adding little peach accents and beginning these sun rays now, so white with a little bit of neon orange. I'm going to pull, line it up with the sun and pull diagonally, soft little flicks, and oops, I just got a little bit of black paint in there. Now I didn't want to edit this out. I want to show you guys what you can do if this happens to you. I actually thought that I was being careful and that my fence post was completely dry, but I picked up a bit. What you do is just lightly scumble it off right away with a little bit of a damp brush. Pull the excess paint off, clean your brush, go back and just lightly pull it off, and then Make sure your brush is clean, mix up that color again, and go right back at it. Try to be a little bit more careful this time that you don't pick up any of that black. So a little bit of white, a little bit of orange. You can also put a little bit of yellow in there if you want to. You want it to be mostly white though. So you can line it up. Those sun rays are going to be slightly wider at the bottom where they touch the ground and skinnier where they come right out of the sun. So we'll do 2 or 3 or 4. And then dust a little line lightly right where they end up on the ground there. I'm going to add a little bit of blue and then a little bit of pink later on for the foliage below. Okay, I'm going to carefully add another highlight, just another layer of highlight here to each fence post. This will help define those fence posts just a little bit more. They're getting a bit lost back there, so I want them to show up a bit more. And I'm just using my filbert brush for this, making sure that all the bristles are kind of neat and tidy at the end. If you push gently, you can flatten your brush before applying the paint. You want to have a nice little line of it on the very end. So you can get away with using a filbert brush for fine detail in small areas. Taking a bit of red now, and I'm just going to add a few little hints of red, a little bit of white right in here against this tree trunk and these branches. Make sure it's nice and bright. And reapply a few of these sun rays, because once you apply your first coat of paint, it can get absorbed in that canvas. Now I didn't use gesso to prime my canvas. If you have gessoed your canvas prior to painting, it will take the paint a lot better. So I kind of skipped that part today and just started painting directly onto the canvas. Now it is primed twice. I purchased it primed twice already, but a coat of gesso is best. So sometimes you do have to come back and do some more highlights as that paint dries and soaks into the canvas. I'm adding a few little dabs here of light ultramarine blue with titanium white. Just for some more little foliage and grass, maybe some little bushes down here. Okay, back to my liner brush and black. I'm going to add a few little tiny branches. And just go over a few of these fence posts. And I'll add a little bit more black to the base of the tree trunk. I can't really decide whether I want to have these fence posts in this area more highlighted or more in shadow. I think it looks nice either way. You guys can decide if you want yours to have more of a highlight to them and show up a bit more. I just think with that tree there that maybe it may be casting a shadow down in that spot for that fence, and maybe it should be a little bit darker, but you can decide. It doesn't really matter. It looks nice both ways. So I'm going to add a few more little branches right in here. Just using my black. Again, barely touching the canvas, being very shaky and making them look like they're really wiggly and crooked. You want to just use the tip of your brush and pull and flick up maybe little bits of grass down here. And more of a shadow on this side of the tree. Okay, and here I go again. I changed my mind and I wanted to add a little bit more of a blue highlight. Add a few little highlights with the blue. Sometimes I'm pulling on the outside of the branches, almost outlining parts of them, and sometimes I'm going over top, and then sometimes I'm just pulling and flicking off for that hanging moss. I'm going to mix up some white and red and add a little bit right in here. I want to add a few little dabs in and around the blue area here in the foreground, just because I like how the colors play on one another. Now after I add this little bit of red right here, I'm going to switch over to my other brush, got my FILBERT, and I'm going to dust lightly right at the base of where these sun rays are, and just make sure it's really soft and ready for my next layer of paint. I'm going to be adding some more of that light ultramarine blue down here in a little bit. So we'll just grab a little bit of that, a little goes a long way, and flick carefully, very softly back and forth. Back to my red. Let's tap in a little bit more over here. I just want to bring in a little bit more color. It's looking a little bit too dark, dull, and boring in some of these black areas, so I want to make them look more like a deep red. Now with a clean brush, I've got my neon red, which looks more like neon pink, but that's what I'm going for, and I'm taking it with a bit of titanium white, and I'm going to add little hints of this bubblegum neon pinky red wherever I feel like I want another soft pastel color. A little bit of that pink. It's really pretty. I'm not going to do too much of it, less is more. So a few little streaks in the sky. I'll also add some around those trees in the distance and at the base of the sun rays. So I'm just going to tap really lightly right here. I'm also going to tap a little bit up in the sky and on top of the tree, and then I'm going to flick and soften to make it look like there's a haze or a little bit of fog kind of over the top of this tree, just to soften it and to help kind of almost make it blurry and draw our focus into what's going on in the center of the painting, which is that beautiful fence, sun, and big tree. So we want to take away from the top of the sky by blurring it up a little bit, if that makes sense. Add a little bit more of this light pink along the side of the tree trunk. And this painting is just about done. I'll just add a little bit more here and there. Let you guys watch the rest of this video If you have any questions, head over to Patreon. I'm happy to answer anything you want to know. And like this video, leave a comment below. I'm always happy to hear from you. Please subscribe to my channel for more free art inspiration. Happy painting, everybody, and I'll see you next time.